Hello sheeple. Let's talk about LGBT or LGBTQ or LGBTQIA or LGBTQICAP, GN, GF, NB, A, 2S, but hopefully LGBT plus will do. As you can see, I'm loosely associated with the furry fandom. Here there's a very high percentage of LGBT+, maybe around 80%. I'm straight, but I thought the furry fandom might be an extremely welcoming and tolerant place to be, because it provides a safe haven for those who have committed no crime but merely do not conform to many societal norms. The only requirement to be a furry is that you love anthropomorphic art and decide to call yourself a furry. I love anthropomorphic art, and fursuiting can be super fun, so I try to join in. Unfortunately, the furry fandom is not very tolerant. Yes, there are possible friends for LGBT, but that's just liking your own. The fandom is just a group of people with similar interests, no better or worse than any other group, like sci-fi fans, for example. I had pretty enormous high expectations, and I stand very disappointed. Cute and fluffy on the outside, with nothing special on the inside, except for a few exceptions, like me. Do I leave or do I stay? What can I do to make things better? Well, how about a warning and some advice? The gay agenda is being pushed on society very hard in recent times, and increasingly in ways that are very much not in the interests of the gay community. Let me make this clear. The LGBT plus community definitely does need support towards a goal of equality and acceptance. Us sheeple can be colossal pricks sometimes and bully those weaker or different, or maybe just whoever we can. Bullying at its worst can lead to suicide, horrible suffering, and the abuse can continue even after they're dead. I'm very thankful that the LGBT plus community is receiving an enormous amount of support. But with this amount of support from the government, the real end goal is going to be hideous and hidden. This is my warning. Let's go into a little bit more detail. The gay agenda is often used to describe any identity or orientation other than straight. Recognition has been given in the form of letters to these other identities and orientations, and maybe they will genuinely help with acceptance, especially when they're supported by new laws. When we get to LGBT, IQ, CAP, GN, GF, MB, A, 2S, and anything up to around about 72 different gender identities involving double meanings and differing versions, things start to get silly. Different states and territories recognise differing numbers of these gender identities. But at this stage, we're not talking about any intentional sabotage from the government, just everybody wanting a letter, I guess. Also, Mardi Gras and any gay rights parade. Very positive things, encouraged and supported by local governments and many in the community, straight or gay. These could be spoilt to a large extent with overly sexual attire, nudity or degeneracy. Society has always shunned this, and this is not a phobia. You're not promoting gay rights in backless leather trousers, harnesses, nudity or a puppy mask. Be flamboyant, be colourful, be dazzling, outlandish even, but not disgusting. Again, this is individual choices, no intentional sabotage from the government that I can see yet anyway. Also, there are tons of openly gay celebrities, gay high-ranking politicians and athletes, almost positive discrimination gone too far. But who knows? Maybe this is exactly what it takes to change public perception for the better. But then the agenda starts entering schools. This is obviously going to be dangerous territory, but it does need to be done. Kids should be educated about LGBT+, but only as an inclusive upgrade to a pre-existing sex education program. Sex education does not have to be expanded in any way, just improved, made more inclusive, and therefore more accurate. No extra time or energy required. You don't target younger children, you don't invite families to a family-friendly drag show, you don't allow pre-teens to participate in that drag show, you don't need a drag queen to visit schools, you don't need to start banning old movies you now deem to be transphobic, like Mrs. Doubtfire. You don't go too far with openly gay Muppets or cartoon characters any more than you would with openly straight characters. If Kermit the Frog was gay, you wouldn't know because that's got nothing to do with his show. You don't need to throw people in jail for refusing to recognise your gender. Though in this day and age that's considered pretty ignorant, but it's not a hate crime. Some people only recognise male or female. There are now, in my opinion, clear signs of intentional misleading from our owners, the governments, and it slowly gets more sinister and blatant. Transgender females deserve to be given all the support they need, just like other vulnerable groups. Boys can play with dolls if they want. They can use female toilets, wear the clothes they choose, go to church, get married, but they can't fairly compete in a sport against a sheeple born a female. This is completely delusional, and the government fully know this. They have their supercomputers gathering our reactions and attitudes to things for the last 100 years, and they fully know this lunacy will get you into trouble. Anyone who complains against this obvious injustice is abused in your name by the government, who want you to fight with straight sheeple and other LGBT+ sheeple who aren't quite so gullible. Puberty blockers. Now things are getting insanely sinister. Puberty blockers, apparently to allow kids more time to decide on their gender. This is such an obvious malicious attack on kids, as well as the LGBT+ community who will be blamed for this nonsense. This is yet another stark reminder of how pathetic us sheeple have become to let our governments get away with this. You cannot throw a spanner into the body clock and expect to be able to pull it out anytime you feel like it with no damage done. Don't bring up a child as a gender other than their birth gender. If they're a young child, it's your decision, not theirs. If you go against nature, they could end up on puberty blockers, other drugs, totally confused, may end up having an irreversible operation and completely ruining their lives. If they ever want to change gender, they'll let you know around about maybe 17 or 18. And if they make this decision after they've been given every chance of an easier life as their birth gender, then you can support them wholeheartedly at this stage. I displayed feminine behaviour as a child, which meant nothing, and my parents wouldn't ever have put me in a dress, no matter what the government said via their media wars, because luckily most parents back then hadn't devolved to the level of the kinds of supposedly woke parents of today. Maybe if the LGBT+ community can spot and resist the malicious so-called rights they have been given, then they can continue along the path to equality and acceptance and avoid the traps set by the government. Of course, our filthy governments will continue screwing with women's rights, ethnic minorities, the poor, the disabled, the elderly, and the list goes on. There will always be misery and death whilst we are the sheeple with a government of wolves. The moonlight fades with the morning glow. Goodbye, sheeple.